I'm pleased to report that I believe we're close on something that is transformative for the company, something that should be announced by the end of this year, and something that is the least dilutive to shareholders going forward, and frankly, changes the complexion of the company and also continues to improve the shareholder base even more than what I was talking about.
Hi, all. This is Andy. I'm with Christian Kargl-Simard with Adventus Mining. How you doing, Christian?
And very well. Nice to be on, Andy.
Thanks for coming on. I've mentioned offline that I have been a very interested prospective investor here for several months. And what I'd like to do is just first, let's start out with copper. I see copper as a proxy on the world economy. And me and my friend group, if you would, an investor group, we are very interested in copper because we see potential deficits coming over the next several years. So looking at and evaluating companies that we want to put our money in, we're looking at third or fourth quarter this year just to see where the economy is. And usually during a recession, that's when you start buying stocks. So my question to you is, work me through copper, why your views on copper, obviously, they're significant, or else you wouldn't be doing this. Walk me through that. And then also, why should an investor buy now as opposed to waiting into the first or second quarter of next year?
Yeah, good question to start. And over 50% of my net worth is tied to copper. So it is the most important thing in my life.
You got a lot of skin in the game.
I do. I mean, financially speaking, many investors believe we're headed to a recession or we're in a recession. And I think that's kept stocks related to copper exploration production fairly muted. But the fundamentals are still very strong. The inventory levels are extremely tight. We currently are in kind of a neutral supply-demand situation. We've had a few new mines come into production, but the current backdrop for building new mines is almost impossible at 365 copper. And you can look at that through multiple projects that did a feasibility study around when COVID started, and now have updated this year. Trilogy is a good example. Generation Mining is another example. So I think you can easily just add that 30% to that copper price that was kind of average pre-COVID. So that would take you to call around $4 a pound. But more interestingly, the incentive price to drive a 15% rate of return for greenfield, so brand new copper projects, that incentive price is now in the mid $4 a pound range. So at $4 a pound, most companies generate cash, free cash. You can pay down debt, do some exploration, but their boards will never sanction a new project. So copper needs to go up another $1 from where it is to start to maybe see a few new copper projects get off the ground.
That's about a 20% increase.
Yeah, but the problem is a lot of these larger projects are in inventory. They're on hold right now. So when a board says, okay, do a new feasibility study, it takes a year to do, call it. And then the board needs to reconvene, and they need to take into account the macro at the time, where the copper price is. They're not going to make a decision based on 460 copper and price is 460. 460 is required to drive a 50% rate of return. You have price much, much higher than that. And who knows what the price is a year in advance of starting a feasibility study or an updated feasibility study on a project. So this is why I believe sometime in this decade, copper will have to significantly shoot all-time highs of $5 a pound to $6, $7, $8 to incentivize these new projects to get built. Why do we need new projects? Well, part of it is the copper grade story. So copper grade inflation, some people call it. The copper grade of the mines operating globally continues to drop, and there's lots of consequences to lower grades, also knock-on effects. So that's one part of it.
Tell me about that, though. That's interesting to me. What are the consequences to lower grade?
Well, the capital cost intensity for every pound of copper produced goes way up. Operating costs as well. You need more everything to do so.
Right.
So you just need to have a higher price in order to have similar economics or margins. Some of the big Chilean copper mines are getting older. They need significant investments as well. But from a macro perspective, the biggest thing that's going to drive the copper price is the requirement for building out the infrastructure for electrification that will occur with electric vehicles, etc. Right now, the penetration of electric vehicles is at a point where the current grids can support. If governments continue to push forward, along with the companies, on the build out of production lines for electric vehicles, ICE vehicles are coming off, there will be a tipping point sometime this decade where there'll be massive investment required. And that is all copper and aluminum. And so you're going to have a period of multiple years with no new investment in new copper mines. And all of a sudden grids will be failing or under stress, and there'll be a massive buildup.
And that's only just grids. Not to interrupt you, I'm just thinking here, that's just not only power grids, but let's say, for example, not to take away from that story, when we get through this recession, let's assume we're in this recession now, new home sales, right? Building out need copper, right?
Yeah, that's in a normal course though. What I'm talking about, something that is disruptive. What is something that's new in the market? And that would be the grid build out for electrification, but also the renewable aspect of it, which is underway right now. Offshore wind turbines, massive usage of copper. All those things are knock-on effects of each other, but the grid build out is the biggest kind of incremental demand for copper. The way I see it is, you see the headlines right now, kind of waning demand for electric vehicles because of the cost of them. I don't see a reversal of the policies that are there for governments right now. The automotive companies have made their decisions to move away from ICE vehicles, and it takes 5 to 7 years for these production lines to change over and for these battery plants to get built. All that investment is started. That's not stopping.
Yeah. No, I was listening to an interview actually with Elon Musk, where he said the easy part in building a car is the prototype. The hard part is the production and getting all of the materials. So, paraphrase.
Interesting development, and no one knows how it's going to go, is what happens to Cobre Panama, First Quantum's Cobre Panama project. We've all read about the protests and the significant pressure on the government there. That is 1.5% to 2% of the world's copper production. If for some reason that mine got shut for protests, or governments shut it down, or something like that over the next months, we are now in a significant deficit position in 2024. That is something that is in nobody's models.
Right.
But to think about where we are from an inventory supply demand perspective, we're one major mine away from being in a critical position. And that could be for Cobre Panama, it could be another mine that has a rock wall failure or something like that.
Got it. Well, let's talk about the team at Adventus. Let's talk about you. Give me your background.
Investment banker in the mining business, worked 10 years there at Haywood Securities and Raymond James here in Toronto, all mining related. Created some great context along the way. And one of my best clients was Altius Minerals Corporation, one of the best mining stocks I know of. Their CEO, Brian Dalton, convinced me to leave investment banking to start Adventus. They were the promoter or the seed shareholder behind it. And Brian teamed up with resource capital funds, Greenstone Resources, and a few other high net worth individuals to inject enough money for Adventus to go public with a business plan to build a significant mining company somewhere on the planet. So in 2017, out of my condo, we looked at 240 opportunities in dozens of countries. And we ended up convincing the board and major shareholders to pivot into Ecuador in late 2017. And since then, we've been focused on advancing El Domo to production, as well as building out a suite of exploration properties. The team has grown as we needed, and the team that we have today is all through word of mouth. It's a fairly young team. We're all in our 40s. Everyone's been involved in some form of building one or more mines, mostly from larger organizations. And so we've all come together as an entrepreneurial group to build a significant mining company. The thing I love most about this company is the team I put together. And I love everybody on the team, but I'm most excited about the construction people that I brought on, led by Scott Mealer and Dustin Small. Both of them just came off of a mine build for Kinross in Chile just a year and a bit ago. They built the La Coipa mine on time and under budget. Scott was in charge of construction and Dustin was in charge of the project and engineering. And that's the same setup we have here at Adventus. The board that we put together has some gray hair, but generally are also guys and girls in their 40s who are excited about building a mining company and have a pretty diverse background. And through all of that, we think I've built a pretty interesting shareholder base with the likes of Wheaton Precious Metals, Altius Minerals, Novus, which is a major Ecuadorian investor. Greenstone is still on there, 25 to 30 institutions and a bunch of high net worth. So we have been able to access a lot of capital over the last few years. It's surprised myself. Unfortunately, in a market like this, we have not had one of these truly cornerstone investors that is willing to write a check at any time in the market and fund the company. We have been beholden to what I call the lowest common denominator in investing. And that, unfortunately, in our last few financings has been hedge funds. And that's part of the reason for our performance. But
what do you mean by that? They're just been selling or trading it, or they're not a long-term investor?
Yeah, until our financing for $34 million in January 2022, all of our financings have been at successively higher price, and all of our financings have been a straight common share. In January 2022, it was a lower price, and we had to take a half warrant. And while we had 28 institutions participate, I would say half of them were faster money. And you combine that with the liquidity crisis that I call it in the junior market since January 2022, and everything else from a macro perspective, that all kind of led to, I think, where we were trading today. You look at the share chart, and our share price has dropped precipitously over several periods along the way under significant volume. And that is likely one institution or two exiting at the same time without any rhyme or reason. We didn't have the corresponding buyers during that period to balance that out. And that's why we're here today.
Okay. Got it. So you answered a lot of questions about where you got your money. I guess moving forward, or today, where are you now in terms of financing? Because that would be probably my biggest concern as a potential investor.
Yeah, we're a pretty unique position. In January 2022, we decided to tell the market we were going to be the next greenfields copper mine to be built. And frankly, it doesn't really matter what the copper price is because El Domo is so high grade, it works. Economics work at any price. That incentive price that we need is lower than any other copper project on the planet. we decided to do detail engineering in tandem with permitting. And that there's inherently some risk to that, because if you don't get your permits in time, you've just taken on a construction team and significant costs, and you're going to be spending more money until you get those permits. And that's where we found ourselves in a difficult market. I still think we're going to be the next greenfield copper mine to be built, but in the end, if our current guidance sticks, we'll be 1 year delayed from what we originally thought. And that's an additional G&A of north of 10 million US that we've had to work through. This year, we have been working through all types of transactions and opportunities, covering mergers, sale of the company, joint venture of the asset, strategic investment by corporates, etc. And I'm pleased to report that I believe we're close on something that is transformative for the company, something that should be announced by the end of this year, and something that is the least dilutive to shareholders going forward, and frankly, changes the complexion of the company and also continues to improve the shareholder base even more than what I was talking about. So you have to wait and see. But in terms of the capital required to build this mine, we have arranged $240 million of project financing with Wheaton Precious Metals, Trafigura, and Strachan, which is a mining contractor. Two of those three came in January of 2022, before this whole liquidity crisis, on terms that I think are very attractive to the company. It's based on the current terms in the market, the total cost of that package is around 10%, which is excellent for a junior miner in Ecuador. There have been some inflationary pressures in the project, not material. So there is still a gap. And what we're working through is increasing the size of the credit facility on our project, which is currently $45 million, to a higher number. The project can take that, call it an extra 30 million, as well as the strategic transaction that we're working on will inject additional equity. And then there's probably one more equity raise of modest size sometime later next year. So we're close to the finish line. Everything we're focused on is minimizing equity dilution to our shareholders, because the most sensitive thing to our NAV per share is not the copper price. It's what the denominator is, how many shares outstanding.
Yeah. Got it. Tell me a little bit more about Ecuador. Tell me, how have they been easy or challenges to work with, if you would? And where we're at, I mean, do you expect any other challenges coming up here in the next several months to a year?
Well, every jurisdiction has their strengths and weaknesses. I would say the hardest place
Very
to build
diplomatic of you.
The hardest place to permit a mine, I would say, is in the United States. Mm-hmm. I think for investors, because we marched in January 2022 and we want to be the next one to build. Now we're 2 years into the permitting process, and that seems like it's long. Some people are fatigued, but in the end, we are expecting this process to have taken around 28 months. That's short compared to most jurisdictions.
Yeah, I've been through that before.
The most frustrating part of Ecuador is that at any given time, you can only base your decisions on what you know, and based on the people you have on the ground. And time after time, those expectations change because of something that comes out of left field that you don't know you're in until you're in it. And in the case of us, we expected the Lasso government, President Lasso's government is exiting in December, to be extremely supportive for mining, the industry in general, and during his tenure, to have all of our permits. We like President Lasso. Lasso is a great person. He's altruistic, but it was a lame duck government. Um, he did not have the control of the assembly. And so he wasn't able to pass any laws or to move his agenda forward. And basically admitted that in May when he decided to dissolve the assembly and call for elections. So it's been a frustrating time for industry in general in Ecuador. I don't fault Lasso, but there's been a logjam, call it, for permits and approvals over this period of time, and we're hopeful under new President Daniel Noboa that we'll be able to get through that.
And I assume you're in contact with him, or you've built relationships with the incoming people in charge.
Yeah. We've always taken an agnostic view to
Sure.
politics. You have to.
Sure.
We're excited to work with Daniel. Daniel is pro mining. We are looking forward to getting to know his cabinet, which is just being announced over the next few weeks. Where we are from a permitting perspective is for our environmental permit, the key overriding document. We're a couple months away from completing the final steps there. We have gone now through the formal 2-week consultation process as driven by the government. That was in July. And in our secondary permits, we receive some, and we expect all of those over the next few months as well. So all those everything's moving through the system well.
Got it. So my last question really is twofold. Let's say, as an investor, how can I make your job easier? How can I make this process, I guess, easier? Or do I just need to sit back and just enjoy the ride? Or do I need to be, what is there anything that I can do to help the process, if you would, to getting this to where it needs to be or where you envision it? That's number one. That'd be my first question. And then my second question, you somewhat answered, but is there anything else that's you can talk about that you expect us to be in the cycle, the mining cycle? As you know, it's like, for lack of a better word, it's a 45-degree go up, but it's not linear. It's like this. Where are you at in that cycle?
Oh, I'll answer that first. The Lassonde curve, which I'm sure a lot of your viewers have heard, is absolutely real. But I think it is, I would draw it much differently than what the normal curve looks like.
Sure.
I would say that the first drop or trough starts when you publish your first resource or your first PEA, or when you, as an investor, see the stock price doesn't move anymore in exploration results. And that drop is a long drop. It's PEA, PFS, fees. Detailed engineering is a lot more money and time than people expect. And you kind of get to the bottom there, I think, once you start the permitting process. And that permitting process is a much longer or wider bottom than what the Lassonde curve shows. And then is construction starting. You're still near the bottom, and you start coming out from that bottom maybe 6 to 12 months before you start production. So it is a long ride. And if companies are just starting the down dip in that first, I would say 3 to kind of 12 years in that period, depending on your jurisdiction. So, that's my comment there. I am hoping that we are in production in 2026, early 2026. Well, would be perfect in terms of where I think the copper price will be. You start putting $6 per pound, say, in the model. This little mine is crazy. It generates multiples of our enterprise value in free cash flow a year. So I'm excited about that, and that thesis remains for shareholders. In terms of the first bit, what can shareholders do or what should they be looking forward to? Uh, well, it's partly trusting me. This is my life, basically, this company. As my first company I've been at the helm at. I would argue it's probably going to be the most difficult for lots of reasons, but I cannot make this a failure. This has to be a success. And I'm putting everything I know into it to make a success. And the team is all behind me to make it a success. If we can get this first mine to production, the rest is history in a way. So trust the team, trust the process. And we are nearly at the end of this road in terms of permitting. And we are a very proactive group when it comes to all other aspects. So it could be a really fun next few months here in terms of the new government coming in, our final permits coming in, strategic transaction, and starting construction in Q2 of next year.
Got it. Christian, if somebody wants to do some more research about Adventus or gets in contact with somebody on your team, how do they do that?
I'm not shy talking to anybody personally.
Talk to me.
All of my press releases and corporate presentations have my direct phone number and email address. Reach out anytime. I'm on Twitter. It's just me, not hiding behind someone else. Direct message me on Twitter, and I'm on LinkedIn as well.
Excellent. All right. Well, thank you so much for your time, Christian. I thoroughly enjoyed it.
Cheers.